In this day and age, where people seem to think any given word can mean whatever the hell they think it can, I'd like to clarify how to understand what a word actually means by looking at the underlying dynamics of its granular components, the phonemes or phonetics of an individual word. So in the beginning, it is said, was the Word. It was the impetus for the creation of the 3D laboratory universe we as humans inhabit currently in all of its complexified glory. Words define all the myriad collective and singular things that we can perceive, states within the ranges of our various emotional equilibriums, actions within time, systems within systems. Combined in sequence, these words become sentences capable of communicating the experiences, both ephemeral and physical, of the 3D laboratory universe. As the sentence is an encapsulated description of a particular combinatory sequence of words, a paragraph is a combination of sentences encapsulating a category of experiential phenomena, a full unitary thought that paints a picture in its manner of construction. The word, sentence, and paragraph are all quite utilitarian tools for communicating with precision about experiential phenomena and proposed experiments or unique configurations of things whose combinations of functions produce a newer and more complex functionality. But what is a word? And what makes it that word that in actuality seems to be the best fit descriptor of the something it is a symbolic pointer to? Words as unique configurations and symbolic messengers are themselves composed of granular units, the letters that spell a word. These letters' phonetics or phonemes are descriptors of subatomic interaction dynamics and angular momentum and are built into the universal quantum substrate on one level and the brain structure, mouth cavity, tongue, and larynx of human beings on another, with the members of the various animal kingdoms possessing their own analogs of these faculties. Each letter's phoneme describes a subatomic dynamic, which when strung together in a sentence-like structures, can unlock the actual dynamic that the word is associating and elucidate the functionality of the word's symbological connotations. When spelled out, there are often letters appearing which have no audible enunciation in the pronouncing of the words, such as the silent E in name or the silent G in right or light. This is because these dynamic forces then become modifiers of other dynamic forces or are intrinsic in understanding the functional dynamic symbology of words using silent letters. The following is a recital of the letters of the English language, the language of anglophones, geometry, mathematics, and science, in their established and enumerated order, and the subatomic dynamic expressed as an energetic function equivalent. So, A is animation or animates. B is to be, exist, or command. C is to receive, center, or see. D is divergence or disintegration. E is energy. It's like a line with three poles coming off it, north, south, and ground, or positive, negative, and ground. F is force. It has the ground removed from it. G is generate or generation. It's the spiral. H is each or spirit. It's the transition from one self to next, or transition from one frame in time to the next frame in time. I is the self, capped. U as the standing waveform gravity well. J is the capacity to generate. Think of it like a fish hook, where a fish can be generated by a hook. K is kinetic. It's the self with a cone of power emanating from it. L is light. It also emulates the knight's move on the chessboard with a 1-2 configuration. It's also number 12 in the alphabet. A knight is like a photon in that it gallops, has a particular waveform that it gallops at, and it wears the shining armor, if you will. So, M is matrix or matter, the finished state of something. It's the only letter at the end that you close your mouth at the end of saying it. The next letter is N, and this is the center of the alphabet, M and N. M and N means to come out of, and NM means to go into. So, a main is something that comes out, the moon comes out, a moan comes out, so the number goes in, the amount comes out, if you will. Minimum is that which comes out, but it's that which comes out which is the most that goes in. So that's how that works. New moon is kind of the opposite of that. It's the part that's going in that's now coming out. So N is next or nature. Think about that for a bit. O, of course, is origin, orifice, the circle, and most of our, like, we birth through the orifice, we feed through the orifice, we move waste through the orifice, reproduce through the orifice, we hear, see, breathe. So that's origin, the circle. P is power. It's F with both the negative and positive poles circulating back on each other. Q is quest. It's the circle broken by a shaft, and it's always followed by U because it is you that is asking the question or going on the quest. R is intense or tensed inwards. It's like kinetic, except part of the energy is returning back to the self, as in fire. S is source. It's also a sine wave. T is integrate or integration. It happens at a right angle. For example, a table is integration able because it sits at a perpendicular to the surface, which is the normal of the flow of gravity, if you will. And if you tilt it slightly, it's no longer a table. If it's not at the 90-degree configuration, it becomes a slide. So T is also the sound like two billiard balls make when they make a perfect one-to-one straight line vector transference shot. And T is the sound a raindrop makes when it hits the ground and integrates into the puddle or the dirt, if you will. U is receptacle. Its form shows you that it's a receptacle, like a cup. It holds things. V is vibrate. Again, we got the idea of the waveform and transition. W is will, wow, as in to bend. It's almost like two V's together, but it says W. So it's like taking the receptacle's vibration and using that as in will, projecting it, if you will. X is crossing of force lines. Y is strength, as in Y. It's the two things coming down to form to support the base coming up to support the two things, recursive and self-referencing. And Z is opposing forces negating each other. Now, there's a reason behind the ordering of the letters, as there lurks within the alphabet's enumeration and symbolic structure a mathematical relationship between all the members of the set. If this is so, it should be able to be proven in a rudimentary bench experiment by conducting an operation on each of the letters and check the results based on 3D laboratory universe experiential phenomena. I would think the most rudimentary of operations would be the adding of the value of 1, which is the energetic equivalent of animation, to each of the letters, and seeing if the energetic function descriptor of the next dynamic in the sequence holds equivalency. If you animate animation, you be, exist, or command. If you animate a command, it is centered. If you animate the center, it diverges. If you animate divergence, it is energy. If you animate energy, that is force. If you animate force, that is generation. If you animate generation, that is each. If you animate each, that is self. If you animate self, you have the capacity to generate. If you animate the capacity to generate, you become kinetic. If you animate kinetic, that is light. If you animate light, that is a matrix or matter. If you animate a matrix or matter, that is next or nature. If you animate next or nature, that is a circle, origin, or orifice. If you animate the circle, that is power. If you animate power, you are on a quest. If you animate a quest, you are intensed or tensed inwards. If you animate intensity, you are source. If you animate source, you integrate. If you animate integration, you become a receptacle. If you animate a receptacle, it vibrates. If you animate vibration, that is will, wow, to bend things. If you animate will, that is a crossing of force lines. If you animate a crossing of force lines, that is strength. If you animate strength, that is opposing forces negating each other. So you can see how each one of these dynamics arises out of the one that came before it by mathematical operation and then cross-referencing the dynamics. Once you understand this more, you'll see the truth behind it, and you'll be able to apply it and see how things actually work in the 3D laboratory universe that we experientially inhabit in our waking life. So basically the structure is such that you could apply the principles behind this simple bench experiment using any of the letters to walk through the alphabet and derive the energetic function of the combination of any other two energetics. Just as in chemistry, the compounds are composed of elements configured in specific formations, so too is the word composed of base elements that each have, in their uncombined state, their own set of functions. These elemental functions are subverted in combination through the function of the compounded system, which in turn these words become elements in sentences, and sentences elements in paragraphs, and paragraphs elements of chapters, etc. So remember, words mean what they mean. Don't let people tell you that they don't.